Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we are going to learn about the introduction to nervous system. Nervous system is the system which consists of neurons and associated structures which control all the functions of the body directly or indirectly. The system which consists of neurons and associated structures which controls all the functions of the body directly or indirectly. You can also simply say that the combination of brain plus spinal cord plus nerve fibers is known as nervous system. The combination of brain, spinal cord and nerve fiber is known as a nervous system. The brain, spinal cord and nerve fiber combinedly control all the functions of the body, either directly or indirectly. We will learn about this in detail. But now in this diagram you can see that this represents the brain, this area represents the spinal cord, while these lines represent the nerve fiber. So the combination of brain, spinal cord and nerve fiber make the nervous system. So these structures combinedly control all the functions of the body, either directly or indirectly. Now coming toward the detail of this lecture. In this diagram you can see that this area is the brain. This is a simple diagram of brain. This is the spinal cord. The spinal cord is attached with the brain with the help of a stem that is called brain stem. This area represents the brain stem. So the brain, spinal cord and the brain stem. Brain actually consists of three main parts. The brain is divided mainly into three main parts. That is, number one, prosencephalon. Number two, mesencephalon. And number three, rhombencephalon. You can call this simply as the forebrain. The mesencephalon is the midbrain, and the rhombencephalon is the hindbrain. So the combination of forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain, or prosencephalon, mesencephalon and rhombencephalon, make out the structure of the brain. Now learning about these three parts. In this diagram you can see that this is the major part of the brain. This part of the brain is the major part of the brain, and this part of the brain make the forebrain. This make the forebrain. The forebrain actually consists of further two main parts of the forebrain. Number one, cerebrum, and number two, diencephalon. The diencephalon further consists of thalamus, hypothalamus, epithalamus, and subthalamus. These are various categories of the diencephalon. But the prosencephalon mainly consists of the cerebrum and diencephalon. The cerebrum and diencephalon, this area represents the cerebrum and diencephalon. The area which is encircled by the red line, this represents the main area of the uh, prosencephalon or forebrain. In this diagram, you can see over here that this prosencephalon or this forebrain consists of this area. This is the cerebrum, and this area is the diencephalon. This area represents the diencephalon, and this whole area represents the cerebrum. This area represents the cerebrum, and this area represents the diencephalon. In the diencephalon further consists of thalamus, hypothalamus, epithalamus, and subthalamus. These are the various parts of the diencephalon. But the main categories, the diencephalon is this one, and the cerebrum is this one. This is the cerebrum. The cerebrum further consists of two hemispheres, but we will learn about that in detail later. Now coming toward this point, you can see over here, this area of the brain is part of the hindbrain, but we are going to learn about in the next slide. In this slide, you can see over here that this is the brain, this is the forebrain, this is the diencephalon, and this black part of the brain represent the midbrain. This black part of the brain represent the mesencephalon. Mesencephalon is the midbrain. This is the midbrain. Midbrain is actually the upper part of the brain stem. Midbrain is the upper part of the brain stem, which lie below the diencephalon, of the forebrain, and which lie ventral to the cerebellum. This is cerebellum actually. This part of the brain is the cerebellum. This is the second largest part of the brain. The first largest part of the brain is the cerebrum, and the second largest part of the brain is the cerebellum. This is the cerebellum, and this is the midbrain. So the midbrain consists of the midbrain is called mesencephalon, and the mesencephalon consists of two main parts, tectum and tegmentum. So the combination of tectum and tegmentum make the mesencephalon. The tectum and tegmentum make the mesencephalon. So this black color represents the mesencephalon or midbrain, which consists of this part of the mesencephalon is the tegmentum, and this part of the mesencephalon is tectum. This is the tectum, and this is the tegmentum. So the midbrain consists of this is the location of the midbrain, which lie ventral to the cerebellum, below the diencephalon, and above the brain stem, the uppermost part of the brain stem. This is actually part of the brain stem, the uppermost part of the brain stem. So this is the midbrain. Now coming towards the hindbrain. In this diagram, you can see this diagram is very clear about the structure of the brain, or the main parts of the brain. This area, as I have told you earlier, that this is the forebrain. The forebrain consists of cerebrum and diencephalon. This is the midbrain. The midbrain consists of tectum and tegmentum. While the green color, the area which is represented in green color represent the hindbrain. So the hindbrain also consists of three main parts: cerebellum, which is the second largest part of the brain, and which control the balance of the body and many other function also, which we will learn about in detail later. This is the cerebellum. The second one is the pons, and the third one is medulla oblongata. So the combination of cerebellum, pons, and medulla oblongata make what? Make the hindbrain. You can see that this is located hind of the brain, at the hind part of the brain. That is why this is called hindbrain. This is called rhombencephalon. Rhombencephalon is the second name of hindbrain, and hindbrain consists of cerebellum. This part of the hindbrain is called cerebellum. This part of the brain, this part of the brain, this part of the hindbrain is called pons, and this part of the hindbrain is called medulla oblongata. Below the medulla oblongata, the spinal cord starts. Below the medulla oblongata, the spinal cord starts. But this part of the brain, okay, now you can see over here that from this area, from medulla oblongata to the brain stem, this area is called the brain stem. The brain stem consists of medulla oblongata, pons, and midbrain. The combination of midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata is known as the brain stem. This was about the three main parts of the brain. Now coming toward this diagram, in this diagram you can see that I have made brain and spinal cord over here. This is the brain, and this part of the brain is called spinal cord. This part of the nervous system is called spinal cord. In the brain, the brain consists of brain and spinal cord. Both of these consist of two main parts. One is the gray matter, and the other is the white matter. The gray matter is not gray in color, and the white matter is also not white in color, but this is just the name which is given to the part of the brain. This is the outermost part of the brain, the surrounding part of the brain. This is called this is the gray matter, and the innermost part of the brain is actually the white matter, while this is opposite in the spinal cord. In the spinal cord, the inner part of the spinal cord is gray, while the outer part of the spinal cord is white. So the inner part of the brain is made up of white matter, while the outer part of the brain is made up of gray matter. What is the difference between gray and white matter? The gray matter and white matter in the you will see over here that the gray matter, these are just the name which are given to the part of the brain. White matter. The gray matter consists of cell bodies and non-myelinated parts of neurons. The gray matter. The gray matter generally consists of the cell bodies and non-myelinated part of the neuron, while the white matter consists of mainly consists of axons and dendrites also. But it should be noted that these should be myelinated. Okay, the white matter consists of axons and dendrites, while the gray matter consists of cell bodies. The white matter can also have some cell bodies also. The white matter also contains some cell bodies. There, a small number of cell bodies. Small number of cell bodies also in the white matter. The gray matter can also have small number of axon and dendrites also, but the main part of the gray matter consists of cell bodies, while the main part of the white matter consists of axons and dendrites. But it should be noted that The gray matter consists of non-myelinated, and the white matter consists of the myelinated. So in this, the outer part of the brain, you can see this is the outer part of the brain. The outer part of the brain consists of gray matter, and I have made some cell bodies over here that the gray matter consists of, mainly it consists of cell bodies. It also consists of some dendrites and oligodendrocytes and supporting cells also. But the main part of the gray matter is made up of cell bodies, while the main part of the white matter, which is inner in the brain and outer in the spinal cord. The white matter is inner in the brain and outer in the spinal cord, while the gray matter is outer in the brain and the inner in the spinal cord. So the the cell bodies are concentrated in the gray matter, and the axon fibers are concentrated in the white matter. These are the white matter. I have also made, you can see over here that this part of this is the spinal cord. The spinal cord, the last part of the spinal cord, I have made it a little bit somewhat like tail. The last part of the spinal cord is not called spinal cord. The last part of the spinal cord is called cauda equina. Cauda equina. Cauda equina is the last part of the spinal cord. Cauda mean cauda for tail, and equina for horse. So the last part of the spinal cord is somewhat like the horse tail. The last part of the spinal cord is somewhat like this horse tail. That is why this is called cauda equina. That is why this is called cauda equina. Now coming toward this diagram, in this diagram you can see that both the gray matter and white matter of the brain and both the gray matter and white matter of the spinal cord is surrounded by some bony structure. This is the skull. This is the skull. Skull encloses, skull is a bony structure which encloses what? Which encloses the brain. Which encloses the brain, and this red line represent the vertebral column. This is the vertebral column. The vertebral column encloses the spinal cord. The skull represent the bony structure which encloses the brain. The skull encloses the brain, while the vertebral column encloses the spinal cord. You will have to see over here that the lower part of the skull, the whole brain is surrounded by the skull, but this part of the skull is having a hole in which the spinal cord is going to come out from the brain. This part of the skull that is this having a hole at the inferior side. The skull is having a hole at the inferior side from which this spinal cord arises. Above this part, this is the brain stem, and that is the brain. But this part below this part, this is the spinal cord. So the hole in the skull, that is called foramen magnum. Foramen magnum. Foramen magnum is this, the hole in which the spinal cord arises from the brain. I'm going to show it in the foramen magnum. You can see over here that this is the hole. This is the hole, or this is the hole, or this is the hole. So this is the lower part of the skull, which consists of hole, and this hole is called foramen magnum. From this foramen magnum, what arises? From this foramen magnum, the spinal cord arises. Below the foramen magnum, you can call this area as the spinal cord, and above the foramen magnum, that you can see, you can call it the brain or the brain stem. So this is the foramen magnum. Foramen magnum is the hole from which the spinal cord arises, from which the spinal cord arises from the brain. This is the foramen magnum, and now this spinal cord goes inside another hole inside the vertebral column, and that hole is called spinal canal. That is called spinal canal. Spinal canal. In the spinal canal, the brain, the spinal cord goes in the spinal canal. You will see it over here that this is the spinal cord. This is a bit smaller in size. You can see this one. This is the spinal cord, and this spinal cord is inside a hole. This is a hole inside the spinal cord, inside the hole inside the vertebral column. This is one of the vertebrae. This is one of the vertebrae, and inside each vertebrae there is a hole, and that hole is called spinal canal. Inside each vertebrae there is a hole, and that hole is called spinal canal. So in this spinal canal, the vertebral column is there in this spinal canal. So this was all about the nervous system. We will go to the detail in the next lecture.